So, what is wrong with the main events nowadays? What is the big problem with WWE and the main events, and why on the main events not being given the right type of respect? And a lot of people have said on record that main events are only capitalized on WrestleMania, and WrestleMania tends to do a lot better overall than any other show throughout the year. But why is that? Why is it, once a year, WWE can make a decent, significant profit within their product and not do it consistently throughout the year? Because don't forget, like Toys R Us, like Woolworths, and other high store street retailers that were making money just in December, what ended up happening? They went eventually bankrupt because all of their income was coming from December. And the worry here is WrestleMania being the sort of bread and butter of WWE, it's going to cause problems in the long run, because if you're telling me all we can do is really make decent money from sort of, WrestleMania as an event, we're only looking at events here, we're not talking about TV deals or anything like that, just the events. If you're telling me WrestleMania is our big draw, then that is a problem, because what's happening in the remaining months? What's happening 11 months out of the 12? Clearly not enough. Now, there's a lot of questions when we think of main events. First of all, we need to establish, okay, well, what is the main event? In a match, which one is the one that we consider the main event? Because the problem is sometimes you might end up with 2 or 3 matches in the whole night that will bring in a huge crowd of highs and emotions. But the problem is, what we need to establish is, throughout the 3-hour pay-per-view or the 4-hour pay-per-view, where is our ultimate high and where is our ultimate low? Ultimate low as in, bathroom breaks, let me go get some popcorn, let me go get a hot dog, stuff like that. Problem is with WWE is, if you're having a lot of highs, what tends to happen is people get bored. So after they've reached their first or second high, what happens? They get bored. They don't want to see it anymore. They're just like, all right, I've had my fun now. This is the thing. The problem is, crowds, fans, they want to see a journey. And sometimes if main events are not sold properly and they're not being advertised correctly as this is our main event and this is who we are, sort of hyping it up towards, and a lot of the wrestlers and superstars, they always see the last match as being the main event. Oh yeah, this is the last match, this is the main event, this is what we're working towards, which is right, that is the right ideal. However, I've seen WWE sometimes close with a Diva match, with a Diva pay-per-view. Now, I'm not trying to, rinse the Divas division and the WWE's women's division, but let's be honest here, man. How much can a woman do in a ring versus what a man can do in the ring? And this, I'm not trying to be sexist here, but I'm just trying to be honest here. The ideal world, because men's wrestling has had a long history and exposure than women's wrestling, it only makes sense to end it being a male-dominated match. And that's not me trying to be sexist. It's just we're talking through experience and history. I mean, at the end of the day, we work from our experience, okay? We work from our experience what works, all right? Now, the thing is as well, which I totally disagree with, is do not have interruptions on main events. I mean, what a way to piss fans off than having a main event where 2 people are fighting in a competitive fight and people genuinely want to see the outcome, then have an interruption happen. Just like that pay-per-view we just recently had, Hell in the Cell. What happened? Brock Lesnar comes in. And I am not lying to you, the crowd was booing. People were walking out. As soon as they saw Brock, people were walking out. And how has that left the show running at the end? Like, what sort of feeling did that leave at the end? People didn't care about the first 2 hours, because what happened? It got overshadowed because Brock Lesnar came in and ruined a classic. And this is something that WWE need to learn, is please do not have interruptions in a match that causes either a disqualification or a poor ending. Like, okay, Now, when that match happened between Sting and Triple H at WrestleMania, that was a big stage. That was considered a big match. But we had interruptions on the both sides, which evened it out, which leveled it out. So that wasn't too bad. But it did not affect the overriding finish of the match. The problem is, when you have someone interrupting and it just ends up being a disqualification because of them interrupting or the no contest, then it becomes ridiculous. Then it's like, well, hold on. We've just paid tons of money and we didn't even get to see a proper finish. So this is the main problems we're having with main events, is sometimes the two fighters or superstars, they're not even been exposed enough to bring in a draw. There's no emotional connection between the superstars and the audience for them to even get involved, to even have that connection to say, look, I want to watch this. And I think sometimes, yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to cuss the indie people out there who love the indie wrestling and stuff, but the problem is, you have to understand, indie crowd versus the universal casual crowd are two different crowds. What might work in the indie scene might not work in a more of a global appeal, more on the international side, because all these people come through the indie scenes, but how many of them actually have that universal appeal? I mean, CM Punk managed to pull it off, you know, and there's only a few people who managed to pull that off. Daniel Bryan, yes and no, hit and miss. I mean, since his return, he hasn't really been pushed that much, and I think at the same time, I think the kind of hype is kind of dead. You know, when someone kind of disappears, a little bit like a YouTube content video, when something disappears for months and months and then comes back again. It's kind of like that with Daniel Bryan at the moment. Regarding AJ Styles, again, he's another one who's definitely picked up momentum. So in terms of indies superstars, they do tend to do well because of their background experience. It's all about just winning the international crowd over, and I think sometimes indie fans and even NXT fans, they don't understand that side, or some of them do, but they just be ignorant. So ultimately, what we can take away from this video is WWE, when it comes to main events, please build it up as a main event. Get us emotionally invested in the superstars, in the characters. Make it believable for us to actually support them and actually say, we're going to buy tickets, we're going to watch the pay-per-view, we're going to book it on the TV. And ultimately, do not make a screw-up job of the ending, the finish of the match. Do not have Brock Lesnar breaking doors down. Do not have Braun Strowman randomly walking around the bligging ring. You know, let's have a genuinely good finish for once, and that would wrap it up. And also in a pay-per-view, you know, you want to make sure that there's not so many highs that people at the end get tired and then they're exhausted. You want to make sure you're building it up nice, a smooth show. And I'm going to wrap with what Booker T said. In an event, it's not about that one guy. It's about everyone in the team coming together, building it up for a great show. And I think sometimes people who are individuals and see themselves as an individualist and not a team player will never understand that.